Hi everyone, my name's Drew, and I'll be your presenter for today. I'd like to start out with just a little bit about myself. I'm the Digier and Voxler product manager, and I've been with Golden Software for almost 10 years, where I also work as the training coordinator for the past year and a half. I'm here today to give you the lowdown on how to locate data via some online sources to use for base layers and grid-based maps in our apps, including Surfer, Digier, MapViewer, and Voxler. We'll be going through the various approaches today for acquiring vector and imagery files, as well as some elevation data in various formats to use in your map. So after the discussion of each topic today, I'm going to stop for a few minutes to answer any questions. You can send your questions to the webinar host via the question function at any time. Now there's a questions box on the webinar control panel right under the audio section, and this is where you can type in your question and it'll be sent to the webinar host, who will then forward it to me. If your control panel is minimized, please check the View menu and uncheck Auto Hide the Control Panel. And we have a really large group for today's webinar, so I may not get to all the questions and I might not get all of them answered. So if we don't get them answered today, we'll follow up with you after the webinar is finished via email and make sure we get your questions answered. The webinar is also recorded. So when we're done today, a video will be available on our website at support.goldensoftware.com. All right, everyone, let's get started. So as an overview, today I'm going to be walking everyone through the entire data acquisition process, from locating data on Golden Software's website to using Surfer's download online maps functionality to download some raster data files. And then we'll also be discussing in detail some external online sources that can be used to download data from, including vector data, LiDAR data, and gridded data. Now, before we get into a discussion about how to download the data and where this data exists from these online sources, I wanted to discuss in a little bit of detail the different avenues that are available to you in order to tap into these resources. So the in-app download online maps feature, which is available in Surfer. This is by far the easiest and most efficient method of locating data for base maps. You simply need to know the extent of your area of interest, or you need to have the extent defined within Surfer in a map by existing base map or base layer. Surfer can download a base raster or vector layer, and it can be downloaded directly into your project, into the plot window. So Surfer employs a few different types of servers within this functionality. First, we have the WMS servers, and these servers provide image files such as a TIFF, and then they can be used as base maps and also as grid-based layers. But please note it's just an image, and so there won't be any z-value associated with these. Many of the images provided are going to be from satellite or aerial photography, but they also could be images of boundaries and point locations or polygons. The default WMS servers can be found in the US imagery and worldwide imagery categories within this functionality, and we'll take a look at that in just a few minutes. We also have OpenStreetMap or OSM servers, and these act just like WMS servers, where they provide image files and are going to be best used for raster-based maps or raster-based layers. Many of the images provided from these servers can include roads, streets, boundaries, etc. And you'll find these default servers in the OpenStreetMaps image category within the download online maps feature inside of Surfer. Surfer also employs WFS servers. And these servers provide vector files such as GML, and you can use them to create base maps again. And they'll import points, lines, and polygons as you would expect. And you'll find these default servers in the worldwide vector data categories. And the distinction between these different types of servers really only matters when the files are being added to Surfer. Other than that, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up and a little bit of background on those. So the next avenue we have is to use Surfer's download online grids feature. Okay, and this functionality, you should notice, is very similar to what Surfer offers as far as downloading imagery and or vector data. However, the file itself is going to be saved to a designated file location on your machine and is not directly added to the map like the online maps feature. Surfer, for this feature, employs WCS servers, and these servers provide gridded data so you can use them to create any grid-based map. And then finally, the third avenue we have to find data is going to be your internet or web browser. And any internet or web browser will work. Okay, you really don't need to be a browser expert. You just need to know what location on your machine the browser downloads to, which is always important, and then how to search for these sites using your browser. Now, as a matter of opinion, I use Google Chrome. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into taking a look at some examples. So I'd like to start with what we have available online as far as our vector data goes. So Golden Software does offer a small collection of boundary files directly from our support site. Okay, and as you can see on screen, right now I have my browser open and our support site up. And when we go ahead to the search bar and type in where can I download boundary files, this leads us to a few knowledge base articles that are focused around downloading boundary data. Okay, and you can see that we have a number of different options. And since I'm making the assumption that most of our users are watching today are Surfer users, I'm going to go ahead and click the Surfer-based knowledge base article. And I wanted everybody to note that these articles do lead to the same FTP site that we have here at Golden Software. And in the knowledge base article that you can see now on screen, this is going to have a link to our FTP and then also a brief description of what we offer. Okay, and so you can see that we have some points and locations of cities, some DLG files from the USGS, US county boundaries for 2010 and 2000, and some additional miscellaneous US boundaries. Probably the most notable is going to be the township and range, or the USPLSS boundaries. Okay. We also have some road files, some more world admin boundaries, some miscellaneous files here, and then zip code boundaries for zip code 3 and zip code 5 polygons. So I'm going to go ahead and click the link to our FTP site. And on this page, you can see a list of what we offer, and it looks a lot like what you saw on the knowledge base article. So I'm going to download a few of these files and then add them to a map that I already have created in Surfer as vector base layers. So first, I'm going to go ahead and find the US roads. And I'm working in Colorado, but you can see these are listed by state. I'm going to go ahead and download a roads GSB file, and then also go back to the USPLS boundaries and download those for Colorado as well. Okay, and you can see how fast those downloaded. All right, these are really small size files, so it's done pretty quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and tab over to Surfer, pull up this map that I've already created and add these files to it. So just like adding any other base layer, you have to make sure that the map is selected either in the plot window, or you can click Map in the Contents window. And then these files can be easily added as base layers by clicking Home, Add to Map. Right, in the layer drop down, simply clicking Base. I'm going to find my boundary files. First, I'm going to add the roads. Don't want to expand my limits. And I'm going to repeat the same process for the PLSS boundaries. Okay. And I'm going to take a second to quickly change some of the properties of the roads and the township range boundaries so they blend with the map just a little bit better. It's going to change the drawing order a little bit as well. Okay, and you can see that we've added these files to the map, and if you have some really basic boundary file needs, starting off with the data on our support site here at Golden Software would be a good approach. So let's move on to the next portion of today's webinar that focuses on using Surfer's Download Online Maps feature. So this feature, which is also available in MapViewer 8 and Digger 5 to a somewhat limited extent, will allow you to download imagery and vector files to use as base layers in your maps in Surfer. So this feature will allow you to download maps or files from WMS, WFS, and OSM servers. I know I mentioned those earlier. And again, these files will go directly into your map. So sticking with the same example that we have on screen, I want to download an image or raster file from a WMS server, and then another one from an OpenStreetMaps or OSM server. These base layers will add some additional information and really give us a good frame of reference for the map that I have on screen. So adding base layers from server uses the same workflow as adding a typical vector or raster layer to a map, but the command is slightly different. So again, making sure that the map's selected either in the plot window or in the contents window. We can go up to the ribbon and click Home, Add to Map in a layer dropdown. This time, let's select Base from Server. When we do so, we see the Download Online Maps dialog. And in this dialog, in the top portion, you're going to see some various categories of servers that you can download map layers from. US imagery, worldwide imagery, OpenStreetMaps, okay? Vector data, worldwide vector data, terrain data, and then we also have a favorites category. Right, and we can access any of these servers simply by clicking the little plus sign or the caret next to it, and then you can see the available servers in these categories. The servers can get expanded just a little bit more, and you can download specific layers, and I'll show you an example of this. But one thing I wanted to mention real quick, that we do have a disclaimer. So you might find that some of these servers in these categories, which are predefined, some will work and you'll find that some don't. And so we're really at the mercy of the service provider. Okay, and so we do see that some of these servers can go offline at times temporarily, and some go offline indefinitely. And we really don't know this until we try to download data from them. And so we really obviously don't have control over this. The good thing here is this dialog does allow you to add more servers to it, which I'm not covering at this time, but we do have some knowledge base articles on our support site that shows this. But if you're searching and you find some WMS or WFS servers, you can definitely add them to this functionality within Surfer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select a server from the worldwide imagery. Right, here's global imagery. And click on the layers. Scoot this up just a little bit. And in the middle portion of this dialog right here, we define the extents of the image or vector data that we want to download. Now, since I already have a base map created, right here, that's projected, Surfer automatically pulls up this bounding box in lat and long, okay, and so we can see that defined in the preview box down here. But there's some other controls here if we wanted to maybe find a central lat and long point inside of our map. We can add a buffer to search within X amount of miles, meters, feet, whatever. Or we can also look at the entire extent of the data source, which is going to differ by server. I think the best approach is to obviously have a map here, so we have our bounding box already defined, and then we don't have to specify this. So there's no, this eliminates some of the guesswork. So towards the bottom portion of the dialog, we can control the resolution of the image or the image that we're going to be downloading directly into our map. And so you can see as I click here that our pixel dimensions and our image size increase, right? Once I get to the resolution that I want, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And this raster layer is going to be downloaded directly into the map. So we're just going to give Surfer, okay, we're going to try that again. You saw that. Give this one more shot here. Okay, and we see that there's an error downloading, which means this service is temporarily unavailable. I did download just a few minutes ago, and so this really gives you an indication of the variability of these servers. Okay, not to be alarmed, let's go ahead and go down to our OpenStreetMap server and see how our connectivity is. The OpenStreetMap server does have a number of different layers here. I'm going to bring this down ever so slightly so we can see these. We've got hike and bike, we've got a hot style, cycle map, stamen toner, watercolor, and a transportation layer. I'm partial to the stamen watercolor layer, so I'm going to go ahead and download this one. I think our image resolution looks okay. And let's go ahead and add this to the map. Okay, and so we can see in the contents window that our layer's been added right here. And we really can't see it too well because of our counties here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the fill. Okay. And you can see our map now on screen has this nice backdrop. And I'm going to bring down the opacity just a little bit here so it's not so bright. Okay, and then I'm going to also bring up our counties here just a little bit. Oops, excuse me there. Okay, and so you can see the ease of using the download online maps functionality to download some raster layers. However, we did see a connectivity issue, and I'm going to give it one more shot here to see if we can get that layer to layer in. This time I'm going to grab the base from server from a different location. See if it'll let me download one more time. There we go. And you can see how this watercolor layer on top of our, drop this down just a little bit, on top of our base map really creates a nice blended display. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take a pause and take any questions from the audience. Okay, so the first question that I have so far is some of the servers in the download online maps feature didn't work, and we just saw an example of this, so great question. And why is this? So what we saw right there is really what I was talking about. We're subject to the connectivity and the availability of the services, and these are all third-party servers and services that we have really no control over, you know, whether they're going to be online or if there's a lot of people accessing them. I do find later in the afternoon that these some of these services are a little more difficult to connect to, and I think that's just due to internet traffic. And you know, in the morning, a lot of times these are a little bit more accessible. So great question, and thank you very much for asking. Okay, so base layer data, and so I don't see any more questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on. But if you do have questions, send those over to the webinar host, please. So base layer data, whether that's vector or raster, can also be found outside of server by using your web browser. And this is really the method that I prefer because of what we just saw a few minutes ago. Now, performing online searches for these types of files can be really profitable, but it also can be very time consuming. So hopefully this next portion of today's presentation will help you narrow down the search and save you a little time in the long run. So I'm going to be discussing 3 different websites that I use often that are really good resources to locate both raster and vector data from to use as base layers in your maps. The files from these sites can be used in more than one of our apps, not just Surfer. So please note that vector and raster data is also supported in Voxler, Diger, and MapViewer. Okay, so I know I'm working in Surfer, but please know we're not limited to only working in Surfer with these files. Okay, the first site that I'd like to show you today, which I commonly use when starting, is the Diva GIS site. Go ahead and get my browser open here. So Diva GIS is a free resource that hosts numerous vector data files and imagery data and some elevation data for the entire Earth's surface. Okay, and these are going to be aggregated in different levels, but most of it at the country level. Okay, and so we can take a look at this by going over and clicking the free spatial data tab. Okay. And now we can see what the Diva GIS site offers. So we've got, just like I said a second ago, country level data, right? And we can see that this is going to be vector data, maybe a few other types of files. Then there's also some global data, some basic country boundaries, rather. There's some global climate data. We've got crop data from Genesis. And then we have some really low resolution 90-meter elevation data that can be downloaded. And then also we have some satellite imagery for the entire Earth's surface based on, I believe they're all Mr. SID files, okay, and it's based on UTM. So if you're having a hard time finding imagery data for the entire world, this is a pretty good place to start. So I'm going to go back up here and click on this country level data tab or link. And before we get into setting our country and picking the file, right below Diva GIS gives us a list of the sources. So these are the different things that we're going to be able to download per country, and there's a ton of data here. We've got some basic admin boundaries, inland waters, right, which is streams and water bodies, railroad data, roads data. We do have access to elevation data from SRTM 30, okay, space shuttle data, land cover data, some population density data, again, some climate data, and then some basic gazetteer data. So I'm going to now set the drop-down menu here to the United States, and you can see as I scroll down that just about every country on the globe is going to be represented here. And so I'm going to go down to the United States. Okay. And then we can find the type of data that we want to download just by clicking the subject download. And again, you see the list we just saw, admin areas, inland data, right? And you guys can see the list here. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and download some inland water data for our map. Okay. That's selected. I'm simply going to click OK. And then again, I'm going to click the download button. Okay, and this will allow me to download the data. You can see right here at the bottom in my tray for my browser, it's coming in really quickly. And it does come zipped. So before adding to the map, it needs to be unzipped. But I'm going to quickly tab over here to Surfer again. And I already have these files or this particular file unzipped, right? And I'm ready to add this to our map as base layers. So again, making sure our map's selected, either in the plot window, and you go up to the home ribbon, click add to map in the layer dropdown, click our base command. And first I'm going to create a boundary file from our areas, water bodies. Change some of the properties here. So a little bit more to find on our map. And I'm going to go ahead and add the other file, which were the water lines for this area. And again, let's change some of the properties here. And you can see now that all the major water bodies and streams and rivers have now been added to my base map. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off these PLS boundaries just so I can, PLSS boundaries rather, so I can get some of the clutter out of the map. Okay, and I'm going to move on to another site that I use really often, which is Natural Earth. Okay, so back to our web browser here. We can see the Natural Earth site. And this is another great resource for downloading both vector and raster data. And for like all the sites that I'm going to show you today, this is another free source for data. So there's a lot of good, the point is there's a lot of good data out there that's free. Okay, and so after navigating to the site, there's a big green Get the Data button. I'm going to go ahead and click that on the home page to access the data. Okay, and so on this Natural Earth site, you can see that there's going to be data available in 3 different scales: large scale, small scale, or medium scale rather, and then small scale. And these are going to be aggregated into cultural, physical, and raster data. Okay, so there's a ton of data on this site as well. Okay. So for the map that I'm working on right now, I want to download some urban areas, some of the more populated areas. All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and click the cultural button in this large scale section. Once I do so, we see this cultural vectors page, and this will give you an idea of the different types of data that's available to download for free from this section. Of course, we get the basic admin country boundaries, and then some with a little bit more detail, just basic boundary lines, some states and provinces, okay? Populated places, and this is going to be point data. Roads, railroads, airports. We see some ports. There's our urban areas, parks and protected lands, and then some cultural building blocks or more thematic type data. Again, I'm interested in adding some urban areas to my map, so I'm going to go ahead and click the download urban areas. Okay. And I'm not going to wait the whole time for this to download, as I've already downloaded the files. So I went ahead and tab back to Surfer here. And then let's go ahead and add the urban areas to our map, just like adding any other base layers. Find my shapefile, click open. Again, I'm wanting to maintain the extent of my map here, so I'm clicking no when the server is asking me if I want to expand the limits. Again, I'm going to change the drawing order real quick here. And then fill our urban areas and change the colors just a little bit here. These to blend with the map. And then probably take the opacity down just a little bit. All right. So as you can see now, I've got a ton of information on the map. And again, all these layers were downloaded from free using online sources, whether that was from our website or the few that I've shown you, or using Surfer's download online maps functionality. So I want to move on to taking a look and showing you the final site that I use for downloading base layer mapping data, which is the National MapViewer. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this site real quick. And so back to our browser. Okay, and so this site is hosted by the USGS, and by far is my favorite site to get data from. So we can get to the very basic map viewer that they have from the homepage simply by going to this GIS data section and clicking the download GIS data link. Okay, of course that's highlighted right there in the middle of the screen. And once we do so, we see that the map viewer is open. And again, this site is going to allow us to download data from the US only. Okay, so it is limited a little bit to North American and US data only. But on the left-hand side of the site, let's see right over here, and I'll mouse over this right here, we see a number of different data sets that are going to be available. Okay, and so we see topo data and then historical topographic maps, and these are going to be those 7.5 minute quads that you used to see all the time. We got some basic boundaries that the USGS offers, and do remember that the USGS is the premier mapping facility in all of the world, so a lot of this data is really good data to have. And then we also have some elevation products, 3D EP or 3DEP, and I'll be discussing these in just a few minutes, so we're going to skip over those. Hydrography data sets, imagery, which is going to be the NAPE, or National Inventory Agricultural Program, National Agricultural Inventory Program, rather. And so if you're having a hard time finding those NAPE images these days, this is where you'd want to go. And then we also have NLCD, land cover data sets, small scale data set structures, some more topo data, transportation, and then some good mapping image files called woodland tint. Okay, and so before we can download any data from here, you would need to first define the area of interest, and you can do so by a number of different ways, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it by drawing a rectangle around the area I want to download data from. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here just using my mouse and get about the approximate extent of what we're looking at. Enter a map, and then I can simply go to this draw rectangle tool. And of course, I'm doing this approximate, and you can see that this bounding box is somewhat similar to what we have going on in our surfer map. And next, I'm going to go back over to the table of contents, and let's check small scale data sets. I'm going to uncheck boundaries here, but I'm also going to check structures, okay? Now to search for the data, we're going to click the Find Products button. Okay. And the USGS gives us back a list of all the data sets that are available from that small structures category. Okay. I'll scroll down here until I find the data set that I want. And I'm looking for some airports of the United States, which is going to be a point shapefile. You can see that right here in this file format. And I can simply click this Add to Cart button. And then go back up to View the Cart. And we can see that small scale data set, airports, right? This is going to be a shapefile. We see that right there. And I can simply download this very quickly. You can see it's already done downloading. Okay, let's tab back to the map. And just like the last layers that I've downloaded so far, I'm going to add these as base layers. Making sure my map's selected. I'm going to navigate to my data here. Can barely see these, so let's go ahead and change some of the properties real quick. And I'm just going to reduce these in size ever so slightly. So now we can see those point locations on our map of the airports. And this was easy to create a great looking map just from downloading free data from those sources that I've outlined. But before we move on to the final portion of today's presentation, which is going to talk about downloading grid files and topo data, I wanted to take another brief pause to answer any questions that might have come up from you, the viewers. Okay, and I had a question that was submitted to me via email yesterday that I wanted to address. And this question was submitted by Bill Corbin yesterday, and I don't think he's out there today, but I think he's going to be here with the presentation on Thursday. But even if you're out there, Bill, thanks very much for submitting your question. And so Bill's question is, whatever happened to the GIS data depot? And I think this is a really great question. And so when I was getting prepped for today's presentation, I thought about all the websites that I used to access over the years, going through college and beginning my job here at Golden Software, where I was able to download data, and the GIS Data Depot came to mind. And so I found, after doing some digging, maybe a lot of digging, that the domain for GIS Data Depot was purchased by someone else, and the site has been now deprecated. So it looks like it's permanently offline, which is really too bad because there was a ton of data available on that site. So again, thanks, Bill, for your question. Okay, so I have a couple questions here. The first one is if you're setting up a range using a different coordinate system, say UTM, will the imported layers automatically convert to the coordinate system used? Yep, excellent question. And the answer is yes, if your files are spatially referenced. Anything that I've gone to and downloaded already have all been spatially referenced. So let's take a look at this real quick. So first, our map is going to be in lat long WGS 84. So our airport layer from the natural map was in NAD 83. Our water lines and water areas were both in WGS 84. Our roads in NAD 83. Urban areas, WGS 84. The data that we serve is in WGS 84. Our watercolor, look at that, that's in Web Mercator. And the other layer that we downloaded, that very back image, the raster image, is also in WGS 84. So when you're either adding base layers by the download online maps feature, or if you're adding them from the home add to map layer and base command, as long as those image or vector data files have the associated spatial referencing, everything will load in. And so we could change the projection to just about anything. Surfer's smart enough to do this on the fly. Okay, so great question, and thank you very much for submitting that. And there's a question about axes labels. Brittany, can you go ahead and answer? That's a little bit out of the scope for today's webinar, but if Brittany will shoot you an answer there real quick. Okay, so great questions, you guys. So moving on, we frequently get users calling us asking where to find sources for free topo data, right? And luckily for us, we live in this world with as just a vast amount of data out there, and most of this data is free. So the last portion of today's webinar is going to focus on some of our favorite sources to download free DEMs, elevation grids, and even LiDAR point cloud data. And so this is all going to be elevation-based data. So the first thing I'd like to do is I want to go back to our browser and look at the national map. Okay, pull up the viewer again. And so I'm going to show you some more of the USGS's free products, specifically the data from the 3DEP. Okay, and so 3DEP, which is the 3D elevation program here in the US, funded by taxpayers' dollars and ran by the USGS, is their most current elevation program, where they're taking in and updating as much as the elevation data across the United States by using LiDAR data. Okay, and so the USGS offers a number of these data sets that are going to be in a couple different formats, where it could be already gridded data that's based on LiDAR in a national elevation or NED data set, or also in the LiDAR point cloud format. And then some of it's also available in just CSV LiDAR points. So all of these are going to be supported in both Surfer and Voxler. So again, back in the viewer, let's go ahead and take a look at the elevation source data. All right. And so we can use, there's some DEMs here and DSMs, but really I'm more interested right now in the LiDAR point cloud data, because we see that this is you know, the up and coming data set that everybody seems to be working. So this is a really good, if you're working in the United States, 3DEP is the way to go for this data. Okay, and so right underneath this point cloud, LiDAR point cloud, you can see that I'm highlighting the show availability. Let me go ahead and click on that, and we can just zoom in just a little bit here on our map. And you can see that, you know, not everywhere in the United States is covered quite yet. I have the sense that the USGS is moving somewhat east to west on their coverage, but I know that they do have dates to have just about every populated place inside the United States covered. And you can see it's color-coded by what type of availability is. And you can see that right down here in the legend. So again, the entire U.S. is not covered, but really the higher population areas outside of California are covered. I'm going to take you to another site here. And so that same data we just saw in the national map is also available from USGS's Earth Explorer tool. And I have their tool right up here on screen, and you can see this. Okay, and this site will allow you to download topo data from a multitude of different sources, including SRTM data from NASA, GTopo 30 data, Aster Global DEM data, and as well as the same LiDAR sources I just showed you on the national map. Okay, and so what you can see right now on screen is the online interface for the Earth Explorer. And you can see that most of this data is going to be focused around the United States again. Okay. We can search for data sets by entering the coordinates, a name place, or an address, or by uploading a shapefile or a KML of the area of interest, okay? And this can be all done on the Search Criteria tab. I'm going to go ahead and search by a place, simply by copying and pasting it in there and clicking the Show button. When I do so, USGS finds it, okay? At least I had enough information there. And of course, this Red Rocks Park is one of my favorite locations here in the United States. And if we go ahead and select it on the Show Criteria box, we get a nice marker. Let's go ahead and zoom in, see this location. Okay, and once we do so, we can see that Red Rocks Park here is bookmarked. And so we can go ahead and search for some data that's in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Datasets tab. And then again, on the left-hand side here, we have an altogether different, and I think there is some overlapping data here from the last site that we just saw, the national map. But we can see we've got some aerial imagery and a bunch of different options here. Navy HRR data. We've got some digital elevation data, DLGs. Let's see, land cover, is served data, UAS data, some veg data. And let's go ahead and take a look at the elevation data. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and check the Aster Global DEM. Okay, looks good. And the LiDAR data set. Right. And we can easily find the results just by clicking results, and then it takes us to the search results page. Okay, you can see both the data sets that I checked are right here, and we can simply download these directly from the website, and I believe you do need a login here. Agree to the end user license agreement, and then back to the Explorer. I'm already logged in, which is great. And then I can download the LiDAR data as well. Just by clicking the download icon. And the USGS serves this up in LAS or LAZ format. Obviously, it's faster to download that zip format, both of which SurfX supports. Let's go ahead and download that. And you can see with a fast connection that these download pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tab over to Surfer real quickly, and I do have a couple of these results up. And so you can see this DEM tile that we have. This is from that Astra DEM, right? And I've just a TIFF file, and I've created a colored relief file from it. And you can see that there's a vast amount of detail here. Okay. And we can also look at this in Surfer's 3D view. Takes just a minute here to load. And this gives you a little bit better idea of the detail that's involved in these files here, right? And so this 3DEP program is really an excellent place to go if you need elevation data inside the US. Okay, and so for right around Red Rocks Park, you can see that I have a point cloud layer with the veg. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And we have our standard point cloud layer here. And I've gridded this data, and this is what it looks like inside of Surfer, creating a 1 millimeter DEM from this data. It looks very, very detailed. You can see some roads and actually Red Rocks Park right here in the bottom section. And I've also downloaded an image. So let's go ahead and also take a look at this 3D view really quick. Again, it does take just a second to load. Here we go. And I'm going to rotate it around and zoom in here. All right, and we see the vegetation point cloud layer. All right, that's just points littered on top here. And if I take those off, we can just see the standard grid file here. And you can see the seats in the stage here at Red Rocks. Right, and of course this overlaying image was downloaded for free as well. Okay, so moving on now to the final site for today's webinar, which is another favorite site of mine for downloading elevation and topography data, which is the Open Topography site. Okay, and so let's bring my viewer right back up, or my browser back up. Okay. Okay, and so this is the Open Topography site, right? And this site, I really like this one because it allows you to download data that's directly hosted by Open Topography, and it also gives you access to some other data files. So all of these points that you see on screen right here are going to be individual data sets, such as the one I just clicked here near Boulder. Right? And when you click on one of these dots, you can find the data set name. And I'm going to quickly show you how to get data. So I clicked on the data set name, and we want to look at the point cloud data. So I'm going to select that. Scroll down, and you can see the amount of coverage from this specific data set. I don't necessarily need all of it. Picked my area there. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more. You can pick LAZ or LAS format or an ASCII point cloud format, which is nice. I don't need a TIN. We could create a grid format if we wanted to. I particularly like to grid the data in Surfer myself. And I just need to type in my email address and a name here. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And it just takes a minute. Depending on how much of an area was selected, this could take a lot longer, but you can see the extraction right there from Open Topography only took 11 seconds. And then I can go ahead and download my point file. Okay. And just like everything else, I've already created, brought these files in, and I gridded these, just like I said. I prefer to do so in Surfer. And you can see the level of detail at a 1 meter grid. I think it was actually sub 1 meter grid created in Surfer. And again, let's take a look at that 3D view. Great level of detail here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my web browser one last time here and show you where you can find some additional data on this website. And so it does have a drop down, and you can do some other things, find data, some point clouds, or raster data. So if we go through the raster menu, you can see that there's a whole huge list of airborne, highly detailed LiDAR data sets. But we also have some access to some other things. And if you click the Global Data tab, you can see that we have the SRTM 30 millimeter data sets and the 90 meter resolution sets. And then we also have access to the ALOS World 3D, which is done by JAXA or the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. So we can launch this site, which is the ALOS Global Digital Surface Model. And you do need to register for this site. I've already registered and have my credentials loaded in. And in here you can download elevation data for any place that you see covered here. So this covers just about the entire globe, which is great, really good here. And so you can just start clicking if you want to zoom in a little bit. Double click on a tile you want to download, and you can simply download it. Right. And this will come up, I believe, in IMG format, which is supported. Okay, and so that takes us right up to 3 o'clock, and is going to go ahead and conclude our webinar here. So that does conclude my presentation of the tips and tricks for locating base map and elevation data webinar, and hopefully everyone, excuse me, found the information I covered today useful. And we'll be out there downloading your own data shortly. So if you have any additional questions about what was covered today, or anything else surfer related now that we're concluding the webinar, you can always call our technical support line or email questions to support@goldensoftware.com. And once again, a recording of a webinar will be posted sometime shortly tonight or tomorrow morning on our support website. And as always, I want to thank you very much for attending and for your time. Have a good afternoon.